I would like to introduce our next speaker, and Hazel has been working with a few of us here at the hall, training us as mental health first aiders. So you may have already heard of Mental Health First Aid England, something that was sort of born in Australia and has now moved over here. But I will hand you over to Hazel, who is the expert.
Thanks a lot, Laura. Hi, everybody. So my name's Hazel Sawyers. I am a mental health first aid instructor. I've been doing mental health first aid training since about 2008, when it first came over to England. My background is in, what can I say? I'm a part qualified accountant. I completed my HR course, and I did a bit of bricklaying with my dad from time to time. You don't have to be a specialist in mental health to be a mental health first aider. Anybody can be supportive around mental health. So that's the first point I want to give to you. And second to that, why do I do mental health first aid? Because it works. You can actually make a difference to people's lives by just understanding a little bit more about mental health. So what I'm going to do today is I'm just going to take you through a couple slides. It's not death by PowerPoint, but it might look like that, but it isn't. So I'm just going to take you through a couple slides just to give you an idea of what mental health first aid is all about. So we're going to look at what is mental health first aid. Why? Why do you need mental health first aid? We're going to look at mental health first aid in the workplace, because I think it's quite useful, being as you're all workplace people, aren't you? Aren't you? Yes. Thank you. So, but as a reminder, mental health first aid skills are really useful in any walk of life. So these are just life skills. Anybody can use mental health first aid. Then I'm going to look at some next steps, because obviously, as part of Mental Health First Aid England, I'm one of their associate trainers, so I get to train a lot of people in the workplace, and I'm also one of their national trainers, so I train people to become mental health first aid instructors. So I'm kind of like all over me mental health first aid. Our actual company is called My Life is My Business Limited. It's called My Life is My Business simply because my life is my business. In the same way as your life is your business. So I mix work and life and play and everything. It all kind of mixes together, but in a very healthy kind of way, because I think that's the way life was supposed to be. I think you're supposed to enjoy your work, and it's supposed to be fulfilling, etc., 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 but you don't need me to go into that in too much depth. So what is mental health first aid? Are there any mental health first aiders in the room at the moment? Okay, that's a fair number. So you can probably help me along with this then, because you probably know much of this. But what is mental health first aid? The whole idea of mental health first aid is, look, we have physical first aid. We know what to do if somebody has an accident, if they cut themselves. We know, clean it up, get a plaster. Who didn't know that? Just checking. Okay, if somebody has a heart attack, we know what to do then as well, don't we? We're not there to do open heart surgery, unless, of course, that's our specialist knowledge and skills. We're there to be supportive and get the professional help. Mental health first aid is no different to that. It really is the same kind of skills. We want to help and support somebody, whether they've got mental health issues or whether they're going through a crisis. And the skills, they're quite simple to learn. You know, you've got to practice them, then start using them. And it really does make a difference. I mean, mental health first aid is the very first early intervention, right? So when we train people, we're not training you to be a specialist, a psychiatrist, or a counsellor, or anything like that. Because I couldn't possibly do that in 2 days. Mostly because that's not my role anyway. You heard what my background is. So we're about preserving life, yeah? We're about preventing further harm. We're about promoting recovery and providing comfort to somebody who might be in some kind of distress. That's pretty similar to physical first aid, isn't it? So in addition to that, what we're looking at is reducing the stigma and the discrimination around mental health. You know, That kind of thing where in the workplace, somebody comes in and, they've come back from time off because they've not been well, and everybody's like, don't talk to them, don't say anything, you don't want to upset them, we don't know what to say. And then we ignore people, which was also part of the stigma. Yeah? We want to reduce that. We want to know what to say, how to behave. We want to have those kinds of conversations. So that's what it's about. We want to raise awareness about mental health. Yeah? And when we talk about raising awareness, we want to raise awareness in the workplace. We want to raise awareness in your communities, in your life, around the people around you. Yeah? One of the things about me as a mental health first aider is I'm quite selfish, I've got to say. I've been delivering mental health first aid since about 2008. When I say I'm quite selfish, what am I talking about? Every single person in my family is trained as a mental health first aider. Boom. What do I know? If I'm not feeling well, if I'm having a bit of a wobble or, I don't know, something's happening, I want to know that there are people around me who know how to support me. Could you imagine? And I'm not going to go into a song like Imagine All the World or whatever, but imagine a world where people actually knew how to support others who are going through a mental health issue or mental health crisis. Who'd like to live in that world? Ooh, some of you didn't put your hands up. I'm all right with that, though. We're all different. Yeah? So learning about mental health is also about yourself. It's about learning how you look after yourself. So the skills that we teach people, you can apply them to others, or you can use them on yourself. In terms of its background, mental health first aid actually started off in Australia. It's interesting, isn't it? Something else started off in Australia, I heard today. What was that? Oh, this. I was just checking that you were all listening. You passed. Right. So mental health first aid started off in Australia. It's a big story, but just to narrow it down, it was Betty Kitchener and her partner, Professor Anthony Jorm. They were walking the dog in the woods. Betty had an accident. Everybody knew how to support her. Everybody knew what to do in terms of physical first aid. But Betty's been living with a number of mental health conditions over years. And when she goes into crisis, people don't know how to support her. People don't know what to do. And that's basically how mental health first aid was born. Because Betty thought, well, wouldn't it make sense, that people know what to do in a mental health crisis? And exactly the same as we would know what to do if it was a physical health crisis. What's the acronym for when someone's having a stroke? FAST. Great. What does that stand for? I thought there was like a little snake in here. Face, arms, speech, and time. That's right. Time to get help. We have an acronym in mental health first aid. It's called ALGI. And it's equally as memorable. Yeah? But we teach people how to approach somebody, how to assess what's going on, how to listen and communicate without judging, which is so important when it comes to mental health. We train people how to give support and information, and then train them how to encourage the person to get appropriate professional help for them and those other helps, because in line with what Johanna was talking about earlier today, it is never, ever going to be just enough to go to a professional, get your help, and go home. Yeah? There are things we have to do to look after our own health. Yeah? It's no good just getting a prescription. We have to look at lifestyle changes. Yeah? We've got to look at the people around us, friends and family. Are they part of the problem or part of the solution? There's so many things that we can do. That's what we teach on mental health first aid. So mental health first aid came to England in 2007. It's part of the Department of Health. In 2009, it became a community interest company. Then big things happened in 2017. Theresa May. Now, before she had that other stuff to deal with, she was quite on it in terms of mental health. And what she did say was she wanted a mental health first aider in every single secondary school in England. Imagine that. A mental health first aider in every single secondary school, i.e., we've got a lot of issues in our secondary schools, yeah? But that's one of the things which happened then. And then, what do we know? In 2019, there's about 2.6 million people trained as mental health first aiders in just over 26 countries. It is a growing area, and I would probably argue that it's possibly going to be a requirement in the workplace in exactly the same way as your physical first aiders are, yeah? There is a petition which went to the government last year saying that we want parity between mental health and physical health first aid, and it is likely to happen. So if you attend one of the 2-day courses, the kinds of things we'll teach you to do are, number one, recognising some of the signs and symptoms of some very common mental health conditions. We'll train you definitely to be the first aider, i.e. to provide that first aid, that initial help. We'll also help you to understand how you guide somebody towards appropriate professional help, and definitely how you can be mindful of your own well-being. That's really what we're aiming at. How does that sound? Deal or no deal? So, what I want you to do then is to talk to the person next to you. Have a look at some of these figures, right? See if you can work out what they're about. We got 10%, 33 to 44 billion, 54%, 8 billion, 1 in 4, and a half. Chat with the person next to you. You've got 2 minutes to work out what these are. If you're not sitting next to somebody, all you need to do is move a little. Bing! Okay, discussion over. That was a Hazel 2 minutes, but that's okay. What do you think that these figures really mean? 10% what? 10% of the NHS budget. That's a good one. I'm not sure. But in terms of employees, what do we know? Here we go. 10% of employees say they rated their mental health as poor or very poor. And most of this information comes from surveys over the last couple of years. What do you think of that? Ain't so good, is it? What about poor mental health costs between 33 to 44 billion pounds each year? And that's billion, not million. I don't know about you, I mean, we're all in the Royal Albert Hall, so I expect you all have got golden stuff you're rattling. No? No? That is a lot of money. For me, I would stop on a motorway to pick up a fiver. I'm just saying, just getting into perspective, that is money. What about absenteeism? People not turning up to work. That costs about £8 billion to employers each year. But did you know that presenteeism, people actually turning up to work when they should be off sick, that can cost 17 to 26 billion? Yeah, that's really what we're talking about. And who didn't know the bit about 1 in 4? I took that from 2009 because that's what it's been for a while. 1 in 4 people will experience a mental health problem each year. Interesting. I like that because when we know it's 1 in 4, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. We count it out, don't we? But what we very rarely do is go 1, 2, 3, 4. We leave ourselves out like it's nothing to do with us. Like, oh, I won't get ill. Well, actually, you might. Imagine that. And if you don't count yourself into the statistics, what happens is when you start to have a bit of a wobble, you don't notice it in yourself. When your friends or your colleagues are saying, look, something's not quite right, something's changed, you're like, nah, I'm all right. You don't believe it because you never thought it would be you. When you talk to GPs about depression, the number of people who get a diagnosis of depression and they're like, whoa, I didn't know that's what depression's like. How would you know? We don't learn these things. We don't learn about these things at school, do we? We don't even learn about them at uni unless it's our specialist area. So we wait till we're at work. We wait until we've had our kids and everything. We're moving up. We're more senior in the workplace. Then we get a little lesson on it. That's not acceptable, really, is it? We need to know about mental health in exactly the same way as we know about our physical health. And what about the last bit? Nearly half of all business leaders in the UK walk on eggshells. And half of employees say no one's even ever asked them about their health. Imagine that. That's what we're trying to change. So when we talk about mental health in the workplace, what we're saying is we want to build confidence. We want to build confidence in your employees so they're able to have conversations about mental health, so they're confident in asking people questions, even questions about suicidal feelings. It's okay to ask these questions, but you know what? Most of us have no idea what to say, unless, of course, we've been in that situation ourselves before, or a close family member has been in that kind of situation. Then we kind of work with whatever we've learned then, and we're still not that confident because we still don't know whether it was the right thing to do. But we can learn about these things, yeah? So we want to be informing staff about the support that is available. What do you have in your organisation? What do you have outside of your organisation in the local area that can support somebody with a mental health condition? That's what we can talk about. That's what we can learn about. And also find out where the information is, yeah? What about employees with a long-term medical condition, yeah? Employees with a long-term mental health condition. How do we empower them in the workplace? Yeah? How do you feel comfortable coming to work? What do you tell your colleagues? Do you tell them anything? Yeah? We need to look at all of these kinds of things because some of the more severe mental health conditions don't mean that you can no longer work. You can still work. Yeah? There are people running countries. Sorry, let's not talk about that. So we're about stopping preventable mental health conditions in the workplace and also having that sustainable culture, yeah? Which means that mental health first aid, along with all the other things you do, it's not just a one-off thing. It's how we live. It's how we work. That's what we want the workplace to look like. A few things that I've learned as a mental health first aider. I thought rather than focus on the companies that I work with, I just thought it was really interesting to think about what have I learned as a mental health first aider over the years. Do you know what? I use my mental health first aid skills far more frequently than I use my physical first aid skills. Yeah? You're more likely to need to use those skills. Yeah? Just yesterday, I went to an event. It was a really interesting event. Got there by accident, as most of my life seems to happen. It was this guru who was at London University talking about health and well-being, etc., etc. So I came home on the bus, all kind of relaxed, and yeah, I'm going to put this into action. Northwest London, first thing I see is a whole range of police cars driving against us. Then the bus stops suddenly. And unfortunately, there's a mad incident in Harlesden High Street, which didn't end very well. But I see all these people coming on the bus, looking shocked and traumatized by what they've just seen. You never know when you're going to need to use your mental health first aid skills. You just don't know when you're going to need to step in and just be supportive and have that kind of conversation with somebody. Do you see what I'm saying? Yep. All good. Okay, what else have I learned? It's definitely a life skill. Yeah, you can use it anywhere, and it stays with you. There are certain activities you do and learn, things you learn that you won't forget, you won't be able to forget. It's all done in a nice sort of environment. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to put anybody through a traumatic experience just to make the point, because it's a very well thought out course. Definitely being able to listen to people non-judgmentally. That was a new one for me. I think when I was at uni, they used to call me Judge Dredd. I have no idea why. But it took a while for me to actually learn to stop judging people. That's their life. This is your life. Yeah? We're all coming from different places. You have to listen long before you can be in there and being supportive. Otherwise, you don't even know what you're supporting, Hazel. Yeah? And then, organizations. When you think about what you want to do, you really have to closely align it with the culture in your organization and what it is you're trying to do as an organization. So, for example, when I work in construction firms, we look at when are the pressure points? End of a project. End of a project, the work's done, you don't know what you're doing next, you're living away from home, yeah? You've got all kinds of things happening. People are at high risk of so many different kinds of crises, yeah? And so we have to make things specific to each industry. That's all I would say. So when you're thinking about what you want to do as an organization, talk to somebody, talk to me if you like. I'll be over there for the rest of the day. But think about what is it that you want to do? What is it that's going to suit your organization? Because mental health first aid has a number of different courses. I deliver on all of them except for the armed forces one. So we have the first aiders who do the 2-day course. They have all the mental health first aid skills. But then we have people in the organisation who want to champion the cause. So they do a 1-day course, which gives them lots of skills, but obviously they're not a mental health first aider. And then we have this half-day awareness kind of raising thing, which usually works for people who don't have the time to do a 4-day or 2-day course. But at least they have some awareness about what is mental health first aid, how can I be useful to my colleagues and to myself. So, in terms of next steps, if you want to find out more, like I said, I'm over there. We do open courses. We do open courses in King's Cross on a regular basis. If you're interested in coming to one of our open courses, where you'll meet people from all different kinds of industries and backgrounds, feel free to ask me some more about that. And thank you very much for listening.